Hey there guys, welcome to the next video here on the channel. We're going to be making a duct tape welcome mat or floor mat in this video, and it's actually a creation that I made in my fan film, a duct tape morning, which I made a little while ago. And you are going to need a decent amount of tape for this video, so just keep that in mind. And the floor mats aren't exactly functional. I mean, you can use them as a floor mat or a welcome mat, but they're mostly just for decorative purposes, and they do look pretty cool. We're going to be making a woven floor mat in this video, so let's get started here on the tutorial. Alright, so the first thing you need to decide is how big you want your floor mat to be. I'm making this one a little bit smaller than the one in my video, but you guys can pretty much make them any size you want. Obviously, the length of your strips will be how wide it is, and however high you apply these strips on your sheet is how high you want it to be. I'm going to recommend that you actually make it two different colors on two different sides here. So I have the brown here and the lime green, and what I'm actually going to do is stick these directly on top of each other. It can be a little bit tricky when you're working on really big strips, so just do it nice and slowly, and we're going to stick those directly on top of each other there. Then I'm going to take my second brown strip here, and I'm going to apply it just like this, overlapping a little bit. And of course you're going to keep applying these strips until you get however high you want the floor mat to be, and you're pretty much just shooting for a rectangle. So if you keep applying these back and forth, probably another 3 on this side, 3 on the other side, and you'll get a pretty good idea for a floor mat. So do that step now. So that's what it's going to look like when you have all your strips stuck down. Now, just out of curiosity, if you guys want to know how long it is, this is about 15 inches across this way and about 9 inches high. So, and of course I have 5 strips on here, so if you're trying to measure it out that way, you can use about 5 strips. So 5 green on this side and 5 brown on this side. Now, like I said before, you're going to be using a little bit of tape in this tutorial, and this is exactly why, because you actually need 2 of these sheets to be exactly the same. So I have this one is actually black and pink. And the reason why we have 2 different sizes on here is because when we weave them together, we're actually going to be able to flip the mat over, and it'll be 2 different colors, which will be really cool. So let's get started here on making the tutorial and cutting out a whole bunch of strips. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab one of your sheets and you're going to line it up on, if you're cutting mat, you can use a cutting mat. You can also use a ruler, and you need to decide how big you want the squares to be. I'm going to make these squares a little bit larger than they were in my fan film, so I'm going to draw a line every 2 inches. And you want to use a pen for this just to make sure that it's a completely straight line, because you're actually going to be cutting this totally in half here and just cutting it off that strip right there. So now what I'm going to do is come over another 2 inches, make sure that's lined up, and then I'm going to mark this piece just like that. And you're going to do this all the way down here until you have a whole bunch of lines on top of your sheet here. So once we have all our lines drawn, we're actually going to put that aside for now, and we're going to work on this other piece. Now obviously if we're doing a weave pattern, we need to make these exactly the opposite direction. So if we want to do the 2 inches again, of course you can do the 2 inches, you don't have to, but we're going to do 2 inches once again, and I'm going to line this up. This one's going to be a little bit trickier because my ruler doesn't actually go all the way over, but we're going to simply draw these lines just like you did on the other one, except these are obviously going the other direction. So do that all the way down your sheet for this one. So once you draw all your lines, you're actually just going to cut them into different pieces here. And if you don't do them evenly across your sheet here, you're going to end up with one piece at the bottom that's slightly different. This one happens to be a lot different than these, but that's okay, because when we're making it, it's just going to make it look more unique, and we'll be working on it from there. So now what we want to do is take our other piece, and of course we have to take our pair of scissors once again, and we got to cut all these lines here. So do that step now. Alright, so now what I've done is I've turned the entire thing to the left so we can actually start working on applying these sheets in a woven pattern. So I have my first one here, and what we're going to do is we're simply going to tuck this underneath. None of these are connected at the moment, by the way. And you're simply going to weave these back and forth just in a normal pattern here. Over, under, over, under. And once you get to a point where everything is lined up, you want to be especially careful, because any little tap will pretty much send the entire thing off in a direction you don't want it to be. And of course you always want to make sure it's lined up to the top here. It can be a little tricky if you're starting off with the first one underneath. But you want to make sure that it works on all 4 sides here. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take a strip, and I would recommend doing a color that's not on one of the 4 colors you used. If you did use 4 colors, we're going to put about half of it on this piece down here, and half of it is actually going to be wrapped around the other side. And exactly what this will do is seal all these pieces in. And then we gotta flip the whole thing over. Some of these won't actually be attached because they're worked on the other side. So we have our 3 pieces there. Now if I flip these over, they'll be the same size. So I'll move this over, I'm gonna move this up a little bit so you guys can see what I'm doing. So we got that right there. We're gonna line this one up here, this one right up here, and then we're simply going to fold this blue piece over just like that and seal it down. Alright, now we're going to work on applying all these other pieces. So that's what's going to look like for the first one. Obviously the blocks are going to be a little bit, covered up because we have this connecting piece on the end, but once you have that on, now all we have to do is simply weave this back through a little bit differently than we did the first time, of course. The exact opposite. And then all we have to do, is just slide this all the way down to the bottom here. And get a little bit tricky because you kind of want to tuck it up right against the other pieces. And make sure all these, of course, are exactly the same size. Or lining up in the same spot, I should say. It can be a little bit tricky. Once you get that piece in, then you're going to take your another piece and you're just going to keep sliding these in all the way towards you get to the end down here. So do that step now. So there you have all the different blocks made through these sheets. Now what we're going to do is we're going to tilt the whole thing to the left here, and of course this is the end, and we're going to simply seal this together just like we did the other side here. About half of it on this side, make sure that's good and stuck on, and it shouldn't give you too many problems this time. And of course you can tell it's a totally different color on the other side, which is exactly the way we wanted it to be. So now that's the 2 sides sealed up. And it really shouldn't move around at all now. Now we have to work on just two giant strips, one on the bottom here and one on the top, and that'll seal all these checker patterns in here. So there you have your duct tape welcome mat or floor mat. And I will say once again, it is more of a decorative creation than a functional creation, because even if you do wipe your feet on this, it will peel up eventually. But it does look pretty cool. Of course, you can make it in any colors you want to. You can even put designs in it, like a big welcome here if you wanted to. And of course, it looks really cool, and you can flip it over if one side gets dirty, or you can actually, take the dirt off if you want to. So I hope you guys liked the tutorial, and I'll catch you next time on the channel. Enjoy making a duct tape floor mat or welcome mat.